Good morning again, everyone. Hope everyone enjoyed their breakfast. This will be the first workshop of the 2024 NNPA Midwinter Conference. All right? Our topic today for this workshop is revenue generating strategies in the publishing digital age. Revenue generating strategies. And the overview as it is written here, using the latest innovations in digital advertising for African American and minority-owned newspapers and media companies. Very important conversation. Please welcome our presenter, who's here with us, and she promises a very interactive presentation. She is the managing editor of the Tampa Bay Times, a board member of the Times Publishing Company, and a Poynter Institute affiliate. Please welcome warmly with a round of applause, Carolyn Fox.
Oh, I got this one. Good morning, everyone. I am so happy to be here. I need my PowerPoint. There we go. Let's see if this thing works. So first, a little about me. I, as mentioned, am the managing editor of the Tampa Bay Times. I have worked at 3 traditional print news organizations at a time when we were transitioning to digital. The first was National Geographic in Washington, D.C., where I started in digital and worked my way up to a position where, as a journalist, I worked with the publishers of the different magazines to think through how to get more digital revenue. The second was Advanced Publications, the New Orleans Times-Picayune, where I was the managing editor and once again worked very closely with our publisher in the local news space, and then moved over to the Tampa Bay Times about 4.5 years ago, where I once again am working closely with the revenue side in hopes to boost our digital revenue, as we all know, as our print circulation numbers decline. So I'm very happy to be here. One note, I'm not just going to talk about ads today. I'm going to talk about just all of the different ways that I have seen or experimented with or worked with our business leaders on to make money, and particularly ones that relate to digital. I'm not an ad tech expert. I would not pretend to be. I work with ad tech experts, but I will at least be able to answer any questions for you all about the journalism relationship with revenue and also all the different ways that we've experimented in the 3 different spots that I've worked. I will hopefully leave a lot of time for questions. I was told that this is a great group for questions, so we'll try and leave a lot of time. I'm happy to answer anything related to the presentation, but also related to digital journalism and audience, which has sort of been my specialty over the last 20 years of my career. So the first thing, and you may all know this, is in the world of digital, maybe I got a little too close to that mic, you have to try and try and try and try. Things keep changing rapidly. One way to make money may be great one day, and then the next day it's not so great. So one of the things I've learned is that adapting is key, and being open to change, as well as just being okay with pulling the plug on something if it's not working anymore. I don't have the magic formula. I wish I did. As you all know, there hasn't been one found yet for how to make enough money in digital journalism. But all I can say is that I think there's hope if we all keep working together to try and figure out solutions. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is advertising and audience. I did a lot of scanning of the different websites of folks here and got some great tips from just how you all are doing things, but also saw some things I thought could improve. One is just programmatic ad placement. So what I mean by that is those automated ads that come in all different sizes that you can put all over your website. One of the things I noticed is that a lot of the websites listed on the NNPA website are great at having ads at the top of your pages. So I see that one across the strip across the top. I might see a 300 by 250 box, but when I keep scrolling down, there are no ads. That's something that should be resolved. That's something where you should stick ads where appropriate throughout the web page. And I'll show you a few examples of that in a minute. The other thing I noted when I signed up for a bunch of newsletters from you all was that there weren't any ads in the newsletters. Some of you are sending out daily newsletters without using valuable space in them for ads. I'll show you an example of what we do, but you'll note in a lot of newsletters, maybe of other journalist outlets that you follow, there's placements of 300 by 250 ads spread throughout the newsletter. So that's another opportunity. I was also excited to see that many of you are experimenting with podcasts and YouTube, and even podcasts that you stream on YouTube. That's another area you should be taking advantage of programmatic ad placement. So what I mean by that is there are platforms that let you place ads, programmatic ads, so ads you don't have to sell yourself, in podcasts. You can place them in the beginning, middle, end. In an hour-long podcast, we put 4 ads in. And then, of course, on YouTube, you should be turning your pre-roll ads on your videos. So what that means is running an ad right before someone gets to the video, running an ad in the middle, running an ad at the end. Take advantage of all those places that, honestly, consumers are pretty used to seeing ads. They're not going to be that upset with you as everyone else is doing it. So please take advantage of all the places that you can put programmatic ads. Here's just a sample of some of the ad sizes. I saw a lot of you using the 300 by 250 and the 728 by 90. There are a few others. The 300 by 600, that's the long one in the left corner. That's one that is worth a little bit more. And then, of course, what's really important these days is mobile ads. So I don't know about you all, but the Tampa Bay Times, where I work, last year, 65% of our audience came in through mobile. 32% in desktop, 3% in tablet. So mobile is our future. It is where we need to put our ads. It is where we need to make money.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I'm the question to ask the
Okay.
Can you go back to that one real quick?
Sure.
So was it 300 by 600?
Yes.
Ask the question a little louder so everybody can hear.
I can repeat it too.
The 300 by 600, that's one of the better ones for mobile, correct?
So the 300 by 600 can go on mobile or desktop. And I actually have an example of one in just a couple slides on our website for the 300 by 600.
But you were essentially saying that I must have missed it. Which one was the preferable one for mobile?
So you'll see there's a couple different sizes. You can do almost any of these sizes on mobile. So you'll see 300 by 250s on mobile because they fit within a phone screen. You'll see 300 by 600s, and you'll see 320 by 100s. And I'll show you guys some examples in just a second.
I just want to clarify.
Yeah, no, please, thank you. So here's some examples. On the left is a newsletter. We send out news alerts about 3 times a day. Through our newsletter platform, you'll see the 300 by 250 ad at the bottom. That's a standard ad in almost every newsletter we send. We at least get one of those in, if not 2. On the right at the top is just the top of our homepage. You'll see that we have an ad that drops down. We have ads on each side of our banner. One in particular, that Storm Ready ad, is a local advertiser, and we'll get a little bit into that, but that just stays there for people getting prepped for hurricane season where we live. And then you'll see this one from the bottom that comes up, and it has the X. That's a really popular ad these days. You'll see it on a lot of websites. People like it because as you scroll, unless you X out of it, it stays with you. And then the one on the bottom, which is not great visually for you all to see, but it actually pops out from the side, and it's a video ad. And that is worth more when it's a video ad. People don't love those necessarily. So what we do is we work with our ad tech team. They are very good about asking me for sort of approval about where they place ads. We work with our ad tech team, and they actually make it so people from our region don't see that ad, so our local readers don't see it. But if people are coming in from Google from all over the country, they see that ad. Sure.
So on both sides of your logo, are those 320 by 100?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't realize that you, so it's programmed to show there, because isn't that mobile size?
Yes, but you can put any ad size anywhere on your website as long as your technology can handle it, right? So you don't have to put the 320s only on mobile. Now, of course, again, not an ad tech expert, so you'd want to talk to someone a little bit more about that. But those two in particular are ones that we designed for that space.
Oh, so you design, because normally mobiles are 320 by 100, 320 by 50 sticky.
Exactly.
Okay.
But like you'll see, the ticketing side is actually a house ad. So that's something where we're selling ticketing through that platform. And then the one on the right is a local ad where they have that placement all the time.
So you programmed your platform to have them there?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. So this is just an example of pre-roll on a YouTube video of ours that we programmed in through YouTube. If you do go through YouTube's process as a publisher, then you can check mark on each video whether or not you want ads to play or not. And then,
You got another question. Do you
Oh,
want
sorry.
Do you want to take questions as you go, or do you want everybody to wait for you to do your presentation?
you know what, just because we are a little late, maybe we'll do questions at the end if you all don't mind.
Okay, yeah, we'll just
Sorry, we're just running a little behind. But I'm going to give you guys lots of questions at the end, time for questions at the end. Great question, sorry. So you'll just, this isn't a great example of an ad because I can't show an audio ad, but so we have a 5-day-a-week sports podcast. It's, as you note, 57 minutes long, if you can see that tiny type, and that's where we program in 4 different programmatic ads using a platform called Acast. One note, I will happily let the organizers share this deck with you. There's some links in it and other information that I want you all to have. This deck is specific to this group, so I'm happy to have it shared around at the end of this. So here is some examples of mobile ads we use. So to your point, there's the 300 by 600 on the far right. There's a 300 by 250 in the middle. There's this one that drops down from the top, and you can follow it. And then there's one that comes up from the bottom. So we have everything programmed as much as possible with the option, we hope, that users can see those X boxes and X out of them if they're bothering them. So most of what I just showed you was programmatic or automated ads. There's also obviously lots of opportunity on local advertising, and in the end, it's usually the higher dollar amounts. I don't think I probably have to tell you all of that. But one note, package opportunities are really important to appeal to local advertisers. As long as I've been doing this, our digital sales leaders have told me over and over again, how can we package? Where can we put things? What opportunities can we give advertisers where they are all over everything we're doing, right? So that's, including print, your website, your newsletters are a great spot for it, but offering up packages is a good way to get the reach that a lot of advertisers are looking for. The other thing that our sales leaders are always coming to me for is, what are the new products you're launching? New podcasts, new video series? What are the new content launches you're doing? A new columnist? How can we get an advertiser in before you launch so that they're associated with the new product that people might be excited about? So whenever you're coming up with something new, that's an opportunity to present an idea to an advertiser. And then finally, many of you may see this or even do this on your own websites, but sponsored content offers clients an opportunity to create their own coverage while making it clear it's not coming from one of your journalists. So I'll show you a couple examples of what we do, but the biggest thing with that is, of course, making it very clear to your reader that it's sponsored content. So I was super excited to see the New Orleans Tribune, all your papers, have this package list on their website. It was really easy for me to find. Again, I'll send this out, but it has a whole list of the different options of digital packages, which include both the website and newsletters. I think this is a really helpful tool to have on your website for local advertisers who may not have worked with you before to get a sense of what their options are, especially if they're looking for digital specific advertising. So I thought that was great. The two headlines on the left are examples of sponsored content off the Tampa Bay Times website. So it's a business leader talking glowingly about his company and how he created it. It's a local expert in SEO giving tips in hopes that another company will see it and pay him for his tips. The other thing we get a lot of sponsored content for is events. So if people are doing a big event, they might write something up about the event and pay us to place it on our website as sponsored content. So time and time again, what I hear from sales leaders at our company is the importance of audience. And this is the space I feel most comfortable in. 20 years of sort of trying to figure out how to grow digital audience. So I wanted to talk a little bit about it, even though it's not necessarily directly revenue, but it really does relate to how your sales leaders are able to make revenue is growing your audience. So one of the things that I think is important is understanding that this isn't a bad thing. I think a lot of people hear analytics and page views and clickbait and think, oh, this isn't really what I came into journalism to do. But I do think it's important these days to understand that, one, you're going to help keep your journalism alive by having audience that advertisers want to appeal to, but it also is a measure for whether or not your journalism is resonating, which is what I tell my reporters who get a little anxious about looking at analytics. You know, you want what you're doing to be seen, and this is a great way to understand if it's working, right? So the two things I really feel like people are looking for these days is not necessarily clickbait, but journalism that impacts them or their community, or explains a concept to them that's hard to understand, or something that makes them feel emotions, happy, sad, joyful, angry. So I think using analytics, you can sort of decide if your content are achieving those two goals. One of the biggest things I would say for analytics that a lot of people don't do is they don't look at what isn't performing. They look at what's at the top. They look at what the top 10 page view getters for the month or the week were, and they celebrate their wins, and they don't go to the bottom and say, oh, wow, that really didn't resonate. So one of the things I tell the editors that work for me is at least once a week, just go in and see what didn't perform, what did not resonate, what headline did not take off, and start to look for trends. You know, there are some levers to pull to see if maybe you can tweak the format or headline of a piece of content in order to get more audience to it. But if a subject matter is just repeatedly not resonating, it is time to have a conversation about whether or not you should keep doing that. The other thing is asking a group of community members to provide regular feedback on your coverage. So when I say that, I mean readers that might write in a lot, who care a lot about what you're doing, friends and neighbors. I will show you a little bit about what we did at the Tampa Bay Times to convene a reader panel, but it's a great way to sort of get a gut check outside your newsroom of what are people caring about right now, and make it sort of a formal group. And then finally, basic search engine optimization tactics to boost your Google presence. We'll talk a little bit about the very basics in just a second, but that's a huge piece of growing audience these days. 45 to 60% of our audience on any given day is coming in from Google or Google News. So it's hugely important to our business, and might not always stay that way. You know, these things change. Facebook used to drive a lot more than it does now, but it is the thing of the moment is to understand a little bit about SEO to help you out. So I wanted to talk just a minute about our community reader panel. In 2021, my boss, who's our editor-in-chief, Mark Katchis, put out a form to our readers asking if they wanted to be part of our community reader panel. He got a bunch of different applications and then chose 50 people in a wide range of demographics trying to represent our whole 4-county region. And each quarter, we, the newsroom leaders, meet with them. We often take reporters with us. It's either on Zoom or in person, and they sort of fill us in on what they feel like is resonating with them, what they're frustrated about. It's really helpful for us to get a sense of what people are thinking about in our community that we might not be thinking of. So a little more about SEO. Your headline matters the most. It is by far the most important tool for you getting traffic from SEO. A couple things about that. Front load your keywords. So what I mean is those words that you think people are going to search to find your story, put them at the front of the headline. Another thing is try for 70 characters or less. If people in your newsroom are writing really long headlines, it's not helping, it's hurting. Google cuts off after 70 characters. So there is some tools at the end of this presentation that people can use to see how long their headlines are and where they're cutting off. A few other things, just some basic stuff. Use who, what, where, why, how, or here if you're stuck writing a headline. Question headlines are often a win. Use numbers when possible. I've never been able to understand the psychology of this, but as long as I've been doing it, odd numbers resonate more than even numbers. Could not tell you why. Maybe they look sexier. I have no idea. But this is backed up by SEO experts who tell me the same thing, I swear. So when you can use odd numbers, whether it's like lists or money amounts, et cetera. And then finally, put 3 to 5 relevant links in your stories. So this can just be 3 links on a subject on other stories from your website on the same subject, I should say. That was like the quickest rehash of how to do SEO ever, and I'm happy to answer more questions about that at the end if it's interesting to you all. So some more ideas on how to grow local audience, which of course is what matters most to your local advertisers. So social media was a place a lot of us use to drive audience. It is less of a place for that now, but it does have every single generation on it. So whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn or TikTok, it is a place you can use to bring new readers to you. The biggest thing with social media is consistency. You have to be consistent in posting on it. So what I say is at least once a day, put a post on your social media. Whatever platforms you're prioritizing, put a post once a day. Sometimes that's a pain when you've got a lot of other stuff going on. There is a platform called later.com. It is very reasonably priced, we find, and you can program out an entire week of social media in one sitting. So something to think about is just being really consistent on your social media so your stuff is showing up in the algorithms. Excuse me. The other thing is take advantage of any local influencers in your community that might support your work. So what does that mean? Are there accounts or personalities in your area willing to promote you? Are there people who are doing really interesting things with big audiences who, if you write about them, they'll post the story? I've had my staff doing profiles of the TikTok influencers who have millions of followers, who've made whole businesses out of it in Tampa Bay. And those stories, not only will they post for us, but they get tons of interest. People always want to know the backstory of these folks. And finally, community events. I'm sure I don't have to tell all of you how much those matter. We did meet a local journalist booth at a big market in town. But as much as possible, showing up to let people have conversations with you at markets or bookstores or churches or community gathering places, I definitely encourage putting a face to the brand. So just a few examples. On the left, you'll see some social media and a story we did telling people that they could come meet our journalists at the big market in St. Pete. In the middle, this is a sort of clever Instagram for our area who we engage with a lot in comments from our Tampa Bay Times Instagram. I don't know if you all saw the in and out popular list that was a social media trend at the start of the year. We were very grateful that this account put the Tampa Bay Times as being in 2024. And I think a lot of that is just how much we've engaged with them. And then finally, this last post is from a really popular new print house where they're making old school Florida t-shirts and sweatshirts with different patterns. We did a story about them, and they posted how grateful they were on their social media and then tagged us and linked back to our story. So hopefully getting in with some of the younger generations with that stuff. So that's what I have on advertising and audience. Also happy to talk more about that in the question section, but want to move on. I know I'm sort of throwing a lot at you all, but I just put as much as I could possibly think of into this. So I'm going to try and keep moving pretty quickly. So Obviously, philanthropy is becoming more and more a part of our business. My boss likes to say that it's a three-legged stool. It's circulation, it's advertising, and now it's philanthropy. I was really excited to see that actually many of you have started a fund on your website. You've started putting a donate button up. One option is to find a fiscal sponsor. I didn't see if that was something that any of you were trying. We are fortunate to be owned by the Pointer Institute, which is a 501c3, and so therefore anyone that donates money to us, it's a tax write-off. The Seattle Times is sponsored by their City Foundation. A lot of places are doing this as a way to get the big dollar donations for people who do want to do the tax write-off. The other thing with starting a journalism fund is make a big deal out of it. If you haven't already started one, craft a launch plan that includes a story, social media, a press release. Make sure people know what your mission is, what they're going to be paying you for in some respects. So, for example, we've said, you're helping support the salaries of journalists, or you're helping pay legal fees to fight for public records. Build a page with a link to donate that has all of that information on that, really letting people know where their money is going. And then, of course, place a donate button on your website and any newsletters you send out. So here's some great examples from all of you that I found just browsing around. The Washington Informer has a nice big donate button right next to their subscribe button. The Cincinnati Herald, I thought this page was great. I think they could put a little bit more information about where the money is going, but it has these options of doing a one-time, a monthly, or an annual donation. And then the Seattle Medium has taken it one step further, and they're doing it membership, which I'll talk a little bit more in a minute. But again, you'll see in tiny type up there that in their main nav, it says both subscribe and donate. So how to drive local donations once you've launched. One of the things we take advantage of is Giving Tuesday, which is the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. We ask for donations specifically on that day. We pick a week each year to do a fundraising drive with a specific goal in mind, very similar to NPR. And then we also hold a yearly fundraising event for our large donors. The other thing you can do that we have not waded into, but I was excited to see some of you have, is do a membership model where you are encouraging monthly or yearly contributions from people. With this, a lot of people provide perks. As you all know, people love swag or merch. Tote bags, hats, and stickers are pretty easy to create these days. Free access to any events that you may be a part of. Member-only newsletters or Q&As with staffers. And then one thing I think that people appreciate is sort of a donor wall on your website where their name is listed if they're frequent donors. So a few examples of what I just referenced. One thing we do is this yearly Support Local Journalism Week. This on the left was an ad we ran in our newspaper and our e-newspaper. On the right is the actual fundraising drive. It uses a platform called Give Butter, which I highly recommend. It's free to use. They're fantastic. We work with them every year. This will be the third year this year we do it. This was the first year we did it, and we set a goal of 50,000, and we're fortunate to reach it. Why my staff love it is that everyone who donates often leaves very kind comments that pump them up. And then we did actually use some of the comments in a post thanking everyone for their generosity. The two posts from Instagram on the left were actually from last year's drive, where we aimed a little higher for $75,000, and it went well. But again, if you're doing a drive like this, it's really important to get it across your social media a few times during that week. You'll see on the left, these are two of our reporters reporting a story. One tip, if you do have photographers that work with your staff or have a reporter that may be great with pictures, just make sure or yourselves, make sure there's images of you guys on the job are really helpful for fundraising. And then on the far right, you'll see this is just a basic post we did with a quote from one of our popular reporters about Giving Tuesday last last year. You know, I do not downplay how hard events are to do. We've been lucky to have 3 years running where our large donors have volunteered homes to have our yearly fundraising event for our large donors. We have our staff work, so you'll see me with 2 other staffers bartending that night. Other staff were the cleanup crew or the welcome committee, so we don't have to pay for servers. We did Costco for the alcohol, and we did free trade for the catering. And then we just do panels and let the large donors sort of interact with our staff, and they really enjoy it and usually, hopefully, take out their checkbooks again. I just wanted to do another example of the membership model. Like I said, we haven't gone down this road yet, but the 19th is a great website geared toward women, and it is an independent nonprofit, and they do a lot around a membership. They do a big swag bag when you initially become a regular donor. They have like an Instagram close friends story just for people who donate. And then they do things like invites to virtual Q&As with their staff. So there's also a world of large grants out there. And I do want to emphasize that some of these grants can be a whole lot of work. So what I mean by that is you may apply for a grant, receive it, and then get all the instructions of how much work it's going to be to fulfill your promise to the grant. So one thing I would note is just keep in mind to look at what will be expected when you're applying for something. Make sure what they want you to put the money toward is something that's actually useful to you. Just kind of check everything out before you decide to move forward with a large grant. Sometimes it ends up being more work than the amount of money you get. But all of that being said, there are a lot of good funders out there now. I like the Lenfest Institute for Journalism. They just announced a new fund for infrastructure, which basically means they're giving money toward technology for companies to improve their tech stack or where their website and other products are run off of. The Knight Foundation and the Pulitzer Center have been doing this a long time and often have good grant programs. You may have heard of Press Forward, which is this huge new national initiative that's bringing a ton of funding partners together to support local news. They haven't really stated how to apply yet for a grant, whenever I get too close. So what I've done is just signed up for their newsletter, so I'm hoping soon they'll start telling everyone like how to apply. And then there's the Pivot Fund, which I think is probably relevant to many of you. It's a new organization. I believe it launched last year. It's dedicated to investing $500 million into independent Black, Indigenous, or people of color-led community news. So hopefully some of you have already looked into that, but I think it's great, and I did put a link to it in this. Okay, so events is another way to make money. I will say that it can be a lot of work and may not always give a huge payoff, but I think there are places that have started figuring out ways to make this work and make the revenue worth it. One of the things we are doing is just trying to pick topics that your writers or your sources are well versed in, that the community is really interested in. So I don't know about you all, but a huge issue where we are is housing. Everyone's talking about it nonstop, the lack of it, how expensive it is. So the first one we did, and what we are calling Spotlight Tampa Bay, is a panel on housing. The second one we're doing next week is on education. I'm sure many of you know Florida's been sort of a hot button place for issues around education, and both K through 12 and higher ed have been really impacted by changes in our political landscape. So that's one where we're going to do 2 panels, one with a bunch of leaders and experts in the education space, and one with a group of high schoolers. They are paid events. We are charging for them, and we sold out the last one. We do trade for the space and catering, which is great. So what I mean by that is The theater we've used 2 different theaters, is giving us the space for free on a night they didn't have anything booked, and then we're promoting them in our newspaper and on our website. So huge savings there. Also, again, have traded for catering, lots of advertising for whatever company we're using. There's also the option to find a sponsor. This isn't something we haven't done, but a lot of other places have. You can even make an event be ticketed and sponsored, which obviously is wonderful. But sometimes the sponsor will also pay for the space or catering if that's just easier. So just wanted to show a few examples. This top left goes to buy tickets for the event I just mentioned. This is in a lot of our newsletters. We put this ad for people to buy tickets, especially newsletters that relate to education. Here's our ticketing platform where we ask people to purchase tickets. The bottom photo is our last event that I mentioned on housing. It was very well attended. We were extremely excited. And then this was just a friend of mine sent some examples from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette a few years ago. They actually did something very smart and used their archives to create a 50 years in Pittsburgh, 50 years of hockey in Pittsburgh exhibit, which, as you can guess, in Pittsburgh was pretty popular, and then did a big event around it and got KeyBank to be their presenting sponsor. And finally, the last thing that I have just as an idea is to take advantage of your archive. Some of you I know have been operating for a very, very long time. There may be photos or stories that people are very interested in. You can license your archives or photos if you aren't already. We work with Zuma Press, which licenses our photos and video clips to people, whether it be documentarians, filmmakers, other news outlets, people that are using it for historical books or theses. We also have used SmugMug, which is a great way to sell your archival photos to people, to everyday people who want to buy them. And then one thing that's been really successful for us is creating books out of our coverage. The biggest thing we've done is actually around our championships recently in Tampa Bay, where we've created books from all the coverage we did over the season with a partner called Pediment Publishing, which I highly recommend. Pediment works with a ton of newspapers. If you go to their website, that's basically their business model. But one thing we've talked a lot about, and I thought might be relevant to some of you, is creating historical or culture-based books. We've talked about pairing with our historical restaurants in town to create a recipe book. We certainly have a lot of historical photos we could create a photo book around. So we are looking into doing more of this just because for us, it's really the time to put the content together and send it off to them, but we already own everything we're giving them. So it's a pretty big win-win, and they are very great to work with. I can't recommend them enough. So let me look at what time it is. So it's 10:45. We have about an hour left. We are going to do a little break now, just get some water, do a bathroom break. But one thing I was going to ask all of you to do and maybe share after the break is just if there was anything that resonated today of something you think would be helpful in your market to try, if you could note it down or think of it and bookmark it in your brain. And we'll come back and just talk through if there's any ideas that you guys heard today that you think would be helpful where you are. The other thing I wanted to mention is if there's anything that's really working for you that I didn't mention, I think it would be a great space to share for everyone else what's working for your market. So I think we'll, because we were a little late, we'll just take a quick 10-minute break. We'll come back and share those ideas, and then we'll have some time for questions, and I'll just go through a few more resources for you all to look at to find out more information about everything I said today. Sound good? Thank you. So we'll come back at 10:55. Might be more like 11, but we'll aim for 10:55. Thank you. Sure.
With my okay, there we are. Everybody, let's gather back together so we can reconvene and come back to order, please. If there's anyone in the hallway, just let them know we're about to get started again. If everybody could get settled, take their seats. Does the door have to be closed? It helps with the stuffiness, but okay. It has a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's because the door is open, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I think everybody's in.
Four hours. Not too bad.
I've been there. I just don't know. I don't know the distance.
Probably Tampa. Yeah. Yeah. It's a long state. It's bigger than people think it is. No, not originally. I'm from San Diego. I was for a long time. Yep, 8 years. That's where I started. I was very lucky. And then I went to New Orleans, which I loved for 4 years. And then they sold my newspaper. I went to American. Yeah. Oh, cool. Very good. You're in DC, right? Yeah. We definitely miss it. Not the cold, but we miss it. My husband works for the National Park Service, so he always wants us to go back there. There's good jobs for the National Park Service in DC. Yes. He's a regional advisor for energy projects in the parks. Yeah. So he's all over the place.
I think we're ready. Just about. I thought we were. And I'm I just want to think we're ready. I've seen other folks come in that I didn't know weren't in here. Dr. Hampton's coming in. Dr. Sanders is coming in. I know.
No, in the middle. Thank you, so sorry.
We good? Is that it?
That's it.
All right. All right, you had a little bit more to go over, then you're going to do questions and answers.
I'm going to ask folks to share,
Okay, right.
and then we'll do
Got
a
mics.
couple more slides, and then we'll do questions. So thank you. Hope you guys had a good break. Thanks for those that came up and asked questions. We'll revisit them so everyone can hear them in a minute. But I just wanted to hear if anyone had any thoughts on anything they've heard, feel like there's stuff they can use, or even have things to share with the group that I didn't mention.
One of the ideas we haven't done yet, but we thought about doing, like the grocery store, meet the journalist kind of thing.
Excuse me, just because we're streaming, please identify yourself
Oh.
as we're.
Denise Rolark Barnes, publisher of the Washington Informer, in the soon-to-be 51st state, Washington, D.C. And a while back, we met some guys who had invested in all these interesting typewriters. And so we did do an event once where we brought one of the typewriters that we used to use that was like an attraction, and people would come. And then we tried to have a conversation, but they were so excited about the typewriter, they didn't really want to talk to us. But I want to know, once you do that, I mean, you know, you set up, what's the conversation? What do you get out of that?
The biggest thing on our end we get is hearing from others what we're not covering, right? I mean, it's like, here's all the subjects that matter to us a lot we either want to see more of, or you guys aren't doing a good enough job on. People have a lot of opinions, I'm sure you all know that. So that's a big thing for us, is just kind of finding out, either through those Meet the Local Journalists or through our reader panel, like, what are the subjects? So for example, we just did a big survey of our reader panel and our readers, and the thing that people kept telling us we're not doing enough on is property insurance. So I'm not sure how it is in your states, but the Florida property insurance market is a complete mess. It's incredibly expensive to get property insurance here. And so it's clear to us that we're just not hitting that subject hard enough. And if we do, I think it will grow our audience, right? So that's an example of, I think, the thing we get out of those events.
I like it as a listening tour kind of opportunity.
Exactly.
And community engagement. It's just getting started.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Paris Brown, Associate Publisher for the Baltimore Times, and you had a lot of great ideas that we certainly will look at. One of the things I did not see, for the first time, we did a digital campaign, Best of Black Baltimore, and that is a great revenue tool.
Yeah, like a marketing campaign. Yeah, the Philadelphia Inquirer is doing a great one right now. If people have seen stories about it, they're putting a lot of money in it, but I think it's working for them. So that's a great point. Yeah, digital marketing campaign.
Hi, Victor Chaperone, Inglewood Today. I have a question around automation and AI. Can you discuss around that, where you see that moving to help us grow our business?
It's a great question. Something we're certainly following closely. We haven't really started using AI for anything specific. One thing we're talking about is it's great for, you can program AI to your style, your newspaper style, and use it for like a first copy edit. That's one thing we've thought about. Another is the Herald, the Miami Herald, who are our partners, they use it to create like top 10 lists of houses sold this month by price or zip code. There's a lot of places doing that kind of thing. My staff have started using it in order to review academic papers to see if there's anything to them, if they should read the whole thing or not, or if it's relevant to what they're reporting on. And then I think there is projects out there to help with things like headlines and social media posts, where you could put your story in and it'll spit out what they think is a good headline, what the computer thinks is a good headline, not they, it's not a person. But we haven't seen any example of that where we're like, these headlines are so stellar, we're gonna start using it, but I think it's gonna get closer and closer. So those are just a few things we've looked at, but I'm sure there's so much more out there. Hold on, we need the mic.
I'm coming up front. So, hi, I'm Frances Tony Draper, publisher of the Baltimore and Washington Afro. Two things we've done that have been successful. We solicited recipes from our readers and actually did a recipe book. And
That's
so that
great.
was very popular. And then a lot of us do have archives. All of our coverage from World War II, we had war correspondents in World War II, and there was a book that we published called This Is Our War, where we republished that in time for the 75th anniversary of the integration of the armed services here this year.
That's
And it's been
fantastic.
very, very popular. So all of us may have some series, but you put them all together in a book, people may buy them.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love that idea.
The recipes are good. Yeah, oh yeah, we sold the recipe book. We even had a recipe for Michelle Obama with her permission.
Oh, wow. Great, good for
I don't
you.
remember what it was. I'm not the cook, but
Hello, Stephen Larkin here. Interesting conversation, thinking of ideas. What can you come up with? Mother's Day is coming up. You can have a contest in your neighborhood, in your paper, best mother of the year. Father's Day is coming up. That's Father of the Year. Children in school. Who's doing good in school? You can feature that. all kind of events you can just come up with out of the box. What month is this? January. February is coming up. Valentine. Who's your favorite Valentine? All kind of ways, okay? Thinking out the box, doesn't matter about the age. Black History Month. Who's in your family that has some Black history going on? Just thinking of ways to engage the public and engage people. Thanks.
Love that. Reader engagement drives audience.
Tracy Williams Diller with the Minnesota Spokesman Recorder newspaper. My question is, because you mentioned that you work with your company that's over you, that's the philanthropist company, but the newspaper is a for-profit, correct?
Yes.
So when you're promoting your events, but you're looking to raise funding through philanthropy ways, how do you promote it? Do you use the newspaper's name? Because you mentioned like some other things that you're doing with the newspaper. Because I have a nonprofit arm as well, and I'm trying to look at how's the best way to promote some of the donations, but if it were to be used for the nonprofit, how is the best way for that? And then one other question while I got the mic here is, then how do you, when you're looking at reader engagement for recruiting messages on how to get the readers involved in what you're publishing, what what vehicles do you use? Is it specific to what you're trying to get, or do you just put one out for print? Because you got print, and you got digital, and you got all them other ones. So I'm trying to find out what's the best avenue that you use and find out is helpful.
Sure. There's a follow to your follow.
I'm following the esteemed publisher from Minnesota. I think my name is Walter White. I'm the publisher of the Cincinnati Herald in the great state of Ohio, but I am from Southwest Ohio because we don't relate that well to the people in the Northeast. I just had to get that in there. But realistically, I think one of the things you probably should share with the group, because it may come off kind of Greek, is that a lot of what we know and will know about newsrooms in the future would be termed modern newsrooms. There's a blend, and you spoke to it, of the nonprofit sector, right, with the profit sector. So when you see these donate buttons, when you see these subscribe buttons, they're basically, let's say, they took that concept from the nonprofits, the PBSs of the world. So I think as we move forward, we should think about how we're going to really migrate into the future in this publishing, digital publishing world, and the things you just described are what's going to be a part of all of our lives. Because the donate button was a nightmare with me and my owners for 5 years. Because they felt, just my group, they felt like we were telling people we were failing and we needed you to save us. Okay, and then a wonderful person from Google helped me explain that to my publisher. That's not the concept. It's been right next to you. So what I think all of us have to learn that what we're operating in the future, we're operating in a blended environment. It's a blended environment from nonprofit concepts into the for-profit. Because the first thing I did was look up your company to see that you were for profit. But a lot of your work is being done in the nonprofit segment.
So we have an interesting setup that I would not call the norm. The Tampa Bay Times is owned by the Poynter Institute for Journalism. The Poynter Institute, in case you don't know, is a journalism school. It does a lot of trainings that people pay to come in for, and it has people like me go speak to conferences like this. But it's named after Nelson Poynter, who used to own the Tampa Bay Times, which was formerly called the St. Petersburg Times. And before he passed, Mr. Poynter decided that instead of selling his newspaper off, he was going to set up a school, an institute, that would own the for-profit newspaper but be a 501c3 nonprofit. So it's a little bit weird. It's very similar now to the Philadelphia Inquirer, which Mr. Lenfest did a similar thing. So the Lenfest Institute is nonprofit. The Philadelphia Inquirer is for-profit. It's a sort of a new model, right? But all of the journalism, all of the employees of the Times Publishing Company, which is what the Tampa Bay Times is on the for-profit side. We are completely separate from the Poynter Institute. We may share things every once in a while, content, because they have some journalists over there. But when people are giving the Tampa Bay Times money, the money goes to us with a small percent that goes to Poynter because they are our fiscal sponsor. So if you have a fiscal sponsor, they do expect that a small percent of the money as being your fiscal sponsor will go to them. The advantage, though, is that a lot of people, especially people with a lot of money that want to donate, want it to be a tax write-off. And if you are not a 501c3 and you don't have a fiscal sponsor, they cannot write their contribution off. So that is why we are set up the way we are for our journalism fund. So to your question, that money that people donate to the Tampa Bay Times Journalism Fund, which is what we call it, goes directly to us and to the newsroom. Doesn't go to anyone else in the business. The Poynter Institute actually collects donations for the Poynter Institute, which is separate. So you can donate to the Poynter Institute or you can donate to the Tampa Bay Times, but it doesn't cross over, if that makes sense. Right. But to your point, I do think there's this idea, and it took talking our former chairman into it too, of if you're asking for donations, then you're saying you're failing. But I also think that there's a lot of people that really love and want to support us that already subscribe and want to know how to do more, and that's how we've been able to encourage donations. I also think, let's be honest, people who care about the news read the news and are hearing that our business is struggling, right? I mean, I do think that there's a general feeling that, you know, they want good journalism, they want the Fourth Estate to stick around. And so I don't know that it's necessarily a bad thing that they know we need their help, is what I would say. Now I have to remember what the second question you asked was unrelated, sorry.
Okay,
Hopefully that helped. Okay, sorry, ask again.
I needed Walter to give me a chance to get the answer first, so I got to remember now. Yeah, I got to remember now what my question was. I got it written down kind of, so I think here, okay, let me try this again.
Sorry.
So what I'm really trying to understand is I do have a nonprofit and I have a for-profit, is how you're stating. So what I'm trying to do is, the more I navigate between the two, I'm trying to figure out how your paper puts it out there, if it is where you're using it. Was something you mentioned, and I didn't write that down because I'm recording you as well. But there was something you had mentioned about the nonprofit being your arm. So when you're receiving funding, you can use the nonprofit. So that's where it struck me to say, well, how are you doing that crossover? Are you promoting it? Because if you say that the nonprofit is your fiscal, are you just saying it's your fiscal agent and it's your newspaper that's actually asking for the money? And I guess how is that being received with your funders?
So great question. So we are very transparent about the Poynter Institute being our fiscal sponsor, in part because it's how we are able to advertise that it's tax deductible. And what we do is our actual system, once you hit the donate button, it actually goes to a PayPal. I think it's still a PayPal, I've got to remember, but that is through the Poynter Institute. And what they do is they collect all of the money, take their percent, and send it back to us. So people know that it's the Poynter Institute because that's where it takes them, but it says the Tampa Bay Times Journalism Fund. And then they send us a check every month with how much ever we've collected, taking their small percent out of it.
Okay, I got one more question.
She did actually have one more question that I hope you can remember that was not on that.
Well, I'll take this instead. So if you do events, have you ever done an event using a nonprofit? Because we're doing oh, you haven't, okay. Then.
Because they're totally separate and
Okay.
they do their own events. Yeah.
All right, so, yes.
Brenda Andrews, publisher, New Journal and Guide in Norfolk, Virginia. I'm very interested in the discussion on the fiscal sponsorship, and I think you answered the question I originally had with Walter there. But to take it just a step further, who owns the newspaper? Who actually owns the newspaper?
So for us, it's the Poynter Institute, but I don't know that this is the best example for all of you. I think the Seattle Times, which I actually can go, let's see, can my clicker get working again? Uh-oh, there we go. I'm gonna click forward past that one. Oh, having a little technical, okay. So there's a link in this deck that I hopefully will get sent out to you. That's how the Seattle Times brought $4 million to fund critical coverage. The Seattle Times has a private owner. They are not owned by a nonprofit. So they worked with the Seattle Foundation to be their fiscal sponsor, which I think is probably a better example for this room if you don't already have a nonprofit owner like we do. So we're at an advantage. The Philadelphia Inquirer is at an advantage. But somewhere like the Seattle Times with the private ownership, they had to seek out a fiscal sponsor, which is covered in that very well done Poynter story.
Okay. So in the event that the Poynter Institute decided that it no longer wanted to do, that it was no longer to their advantage to support as a fiscal sponsor, then what happens at that point? Or what could happen?
What could happen, we would have to decide if we were going to do the fund without a sponsor and therefore not make it tax deductible for folks, or we'd have to find a different one.
Okay, great. So you would be back to where you were before the Poynter came in?
Yes.
For the most part?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Do you want to, I'm going to go through these 2 slides real fast and then I'll keep taking questions because this is sort of turned into the question part and I want to just cover this stuff really quickly. So I just wanted to talk real fast about a few of the things I mentioned earlier. Press forward, here's a primer that you can go to find out what's going on with that. As I just said, the Seattle Times has brought in, this was actually from a few years ago, they've since brought in more money. They're a great model to look at. They've made a lot of smart decisions about how they spend their funding in order for people to want to give them more. There's more about the Pivot Fund, and the bottom link is that Give Butter platform I mentioned for fundraising drives. And then, can we just go back one? Because my thing is, okay. So this is just something I wanted to mention. Excuse the sort of racy title, but what WTF is SEO is a fantastic weekly newsletter. I can't recommend it enough. It's just for news publishers. It's helped my staff tremendously, and it's run by 2 journalists who talk to SEO experts all over the industry. It's free. Google Trends is a great place to search for what people are looking for when you're trying to decide on a headline. This link, the third link, is where you can check your headline and blurb and what it will look like in Google before you publish to see if it cuts off. Metatags.io shows how stories display across all the platforms once they are live. So you can look what it will look like on Facebook, Instagram, well, not Instagram, sorry, Facebook, LinkedIn, Google, and other outlets. And then finally, the Google News Initiative, I think some of you have worked with them, but they have a huge set of resources for growing audience on their website, and that's the link right there. Okay, I went through that really fast, but I just wanted to make sure I touched on all of those. And now we have 25 minutes for questions, so let's keep going. Sorry to have interrupted you.
That's okay. Hi, my name is Trina Stubbs. I'm the new COO for Insight News. And I actually wanted to talk a little bit about the AI, but then we kind of got into the nonprofit.
Totally fine.
So how we use the AI is that there's an actual tool called Answer the Public. Answer the Public allows you to put in keywords so that you can see what the general public is looking for. We then take those keywords and put them into ChatGPT, and it actually allows us to not only help with titles, but there's also an add-on app that you can use for SEO. Because I know that you mentioned, adding your links and the keywords for SEO, but you can actually use that tool, ChatGPT, to find the keywords and the hashtags that are most popular because it scours the internet.
It's great advice. Answer the Public is another one. I should have had it on here, but my staff love that tool. It's a great tool.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes, Alvaro Gurdian with La Noticia and the NAHP. I had a question when you were mentioning about newsletters and about advertising in it. Just wondering what tool you use, if any, to insert the advertising inside of the newsletter, and or is it and if you allow programmatic ads within the newsletter?
Yes, so what you saw in that newsletter was a programmatic ad. We do newsletter sponsors where people can sponsor an entire newsletter or our entire suite of newsletters locally. The ad tech in the newsletter is actually through our provider, which is ListTrack. So it just depends. You'd want to talk to whoever your newsletter provider is to see if they can do it or if you have to use a second vendor or maybe whoever your ad tech provider is on your website. But we do both use programmatic and native advertising in our newsletters if our ad team sells sponsorships locally.
And the latter is done by hand?
Sorry, which one?
The native one, those are done by hand?
What happens is they get fed into the ad tech platform.
I have a question. Wait a minute. I thought you had a question.
Oh, you had the question?
Kenneth Miller, South Bay Black Journal in California. In California, we have a schism that is dividing for-profit newspapers against nonprofit newspapers. And I want to ask you, what's the advantages and what are the disadvantages? I think the lady over there who asked you what would happen if, for whatever reasons, this nonprofit decided we don't want to be your sponsor. You could potentially fold. Newspapers are crumbling by the day. So I want to get a clear answer on what's the benefit, the short and long-term benefit of being for-profit, and what's the short and long-term benefit in being a nonprofit?
It's a great question. I wish I was more of an expert to answer, but I do know that in discussions we've had about our status and whether or not it would benefit us to go nonprofit, one of the things that's come up is we still have an editorial board. And we still publish editorials on behalf of the company with an opinion in them. And I believe the rules around being nonprofit is we probably would not be allowed to do that anymore. And so that's been a big conversation. We have a Pulitzer Prize winning editorial board, and so that would have to go away. So that was one of the big conversations. It's also weighing, I think, the tax benefits with property tax that I will not pretend to be an expert in, but we own less property than we used to, and I don't know, I think that is a reason that we may consider it. There's also a status, and excuse me that I'm completely blanking on what it's called, between nonprofit and for-profit. I wish I could remember. If anyone knows it, shout it out, but that we've also looked at as a possibility because of some of the advantages of being nonprofit, including things like we wouldn't have to have a fiscal sponsor anymore, so they wouldn't collect the percent for us. Again, they're our owners, so it's a little different. But if we were to be able to be nonprofit, I think there would be some advantages, but we'd have to stop doing some things we're currently doing.
Jean-Marc Marinet from Reset Digital. We're a programmatic company. Quick two-part question. What has been the top 3 drivers that helps you maintain your traffic?
Like
on a
subject
digital,
matter?
on a digital space,
Uh-huh.
and also for your print.
So are you talking about subject matter or platform or
I'm talking
refer?
about audience traffic.
Okay.
Because right now you do about 1.3 per month of audience traffic digitally. So what have been the drivers that helped you either grow it or maintain your traffic?
So our traffic is very much rooted in news coverage. When I say that, I mean, for example, politics coverage, both locally and statewide, is a huge winner for us. Education coverage in the last few years has been huge for us because of the political nature of it. The Bucks, so, we had Tom Brady for a few years there. Weather. So we don't do daily weather coverage, but we do any severe weather, and we've had a lot of it. We've had 2 hurricanes that have been very close calls, but have affected our general region heavily, both Ian and Idalia within less than a year. That drives huge audience and huge subscriptions. I would say those are the big things off the top of my head. People love explanatory content, scandal, which we've had a little bit of in both our sports and politics coverage lately. Elections is another big one. We had a big election last year in a year that not a lot of other states had big elections. So I could probably go on and on. It really depends on the week, but our news coverages are the heart of what we do, I would say. Tampa Bay is a weird market. A lot of markets get a lot more out of their sports teams, but we're very transient, and a lot of people in our market don't cheer for the teams that are there. They cheer for other teams. Hopefully that answered your question. Was it a content question? Okay.
Any other questions on the revenue issue? Okay, we're still here.
Tracy again with the Minnesota Spokesman Recorder. My question, you talked about your archives, and I'm always a little cautious about giving up any of my products to another company. How much control do you lose, and is it worth the benefit that you gain by them holding onto your pictures and making them so that they are licensing them for you?
So it really depends. We license a lot of our stories, and as much as we can, people have to just replicate the exact story that they licensed, and we make a lot of money off of that from between LexisNexis and the wire services that take our stories. In terms of the photo archive, I would say that there's a lot of ways you can write into the contracts of someone purchasing your photo that they have to use it in a specific way, right? So when we work with Zuma Press, they know when they send a contract to license a photo of ours that there's only certain things we want it used for. Does that make sense? They're great. I would highly recommend using them.
Sonny Masai, Giles, publisher and CEO of the Houston Defender. Question, you mentioned your community events. Give me some descriptions of what are the components that make up your community events. And the variety look like you do different kinds. So if you break down the pieces that make up, and what are the deliverables you get out of those events?
Great question. So our biggest event that is most successful is our yearly book festival, which is a one-day, all-day event. We are fortunate to still have a book critic. A lot of local newspapers don't anymore, and she has good relationships with a lot of publishers, so we get some pretty big names. And Florida has some pretty big names that come every year. So that's a big one. That's like, 6 interviews throughout a day with different authors, and a variety of our different staff sit with them based on the subject matter. Okay, let's think. 5,000 maybe? That's really very, very popular. The more community conversation events is a panel, so it's usually one of our staff leading, usually an editor, one of our reporters, and then four other folks either in leadership positions, politicians, former politicians that are still involved in the community, experts, academics, in the case of education, former superintendents, that kind of thing. And that is similar to any panel you see. We bring in questions that the panelists answer, and then we leave time for the community to ask questions. And I would say that's more like 1,000 people go to those on a good day. They're about hour and a half long, and we provide either a cash bar or free food and drink.
And what kind of, do you get first-party data from the registration?
We do. That's a very good point. So collect email addresses when they buy tickets. We actually were talking about our ticketing platform, My TV Tickets, which we've had a lot of good experience with recently. So we do collect email addresses from that experience and are able to, try and sell subscriptions and other things to anyone that's not already a subscriber.
Are you doing surveys?
We have not tried doing surveys, after the fact. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, as you close.
We have not, that I know of, tried to do a survey. No, that's a great idea.
Any other deliverables?
Not that I can think of.
Thank you.
Yeah, great question.
People taking notes and recording. Let me just remind everybody, if we didn't announce it earlier, this is live streaming. So this will live, this conversation, at blackpressusa.com, Black Press USA, YouTube, Black Press USA, Twitter. So if you need to go back later and double check your notes or take more notes.
Good afternoon, Gina Wilson Stewart, Telegram newspaper. When you mentioned the digital package advertising, have you noticed that when people decide they're going to do it, are they not including much print, or are they using a combination of all the three things you had listed?
Most folks we work with still want a representation in our print newspaper, and this actually brings up something that this gentleman mentioned to me that I didn't talk a lot about, was our e-newspaper. So we have sort of what we call a bridge product in our e-newspaper. I noticed some of you have an e-newspaper on your website too. We print newspapers 2 days a week now. So we are a Wednesday and Sunday printed newspaper. Every other day we do an e-newspaper. So we were very fortunate that our readership handled that transition well during the pandemic. And about 45 to 55,000 people read the e-newspaper every day. And we are able to both get the printed advertising in there, the traditional look and feel, but also put programmatic advertising or even local advertising around it and in the middle of it, which is a great idea if you are not doing that with your e-newspaper, is to also do programmatic on top of any print advertising. But to your point, I think people like being in all three. So the printed paper, the e-newspaper, the website, newsletters. But there are specific clients, I think, that are reaching for maybe a younger demographic that don't pay for the print advertising, which, as you all know, is usually more expensive, and set their sights on either like a takeover, they call it, of the website, or a package that includes both the newsletters and the website.
Just a quick follow-up. The e-newsletter, does it just live on your website, or do you actually distribute that to your subscribers, or how do you distribute it?
The e-newspaper is locked down.
I'm sorry,
You're talking about newspaper,
newspaper,
right? Good clarification. So the e-newspaper, you can access a few different ways. There is a button in our navigation that will send you to a desktop version where you can flip through it using your mouse. Then we also have an app product where you can either look at just the feed of stories coming from our website, or you can look through the e-newspaper on your phone or your tablet, and you have to sign in to that in order to access it. So you have to be a subscriber in order to access it. So you can get the e-newspaper either from a link in our website, and it sends you to a platform with the e-newspaper where you can page through it, click on the article, blow it up so it's easier to read, or you can do it on your phone and tablet through an app.
Unless they subscribe.
No, so what happens is we have something called the Day Starter newsletter, which goes out every morning at 6:30 a.m. It's beloved by the audience that might not be as into the e-newspaper format, and it's like the list of everything we covered either the day before or that morning, with, written through is how I would describe it. And at the top of that, there's a button that says go to today's e-newspaper. And so anyone who's a subscriber gets that if they want to be reminded that they can go to the e-newspaper. But the e-newspaper gets uploaded no matter what. Like, you don't have to click that button to get to it. It's just a good reminder for people. Page Suite. It's mostly a good vendor.
So I have a question about your e-newspaper.
Sorry, where am I going?
Is it separate from your website?
Yes. So it lives on a separate vendor's website than our CMS. And so it's linked from our website, but when you click to it, you're going to a separate experience. Does that make sense?
Somewhat.
I wish I could go live.
Because my newsletter goes out. I send my newsletter out on MailChimp. And
Yes.
that's to all of my content, all of my contacts.
That's the newsletter. We use ListTrack, same idea, but our e-newspaper is just a replica edition of the newspaper.
Now, we have the e-newspaper that's a part of the website where you can actually open the whole paper and flip it. So, okay.
Yeah,
so-
same thing. It's just different back-end vendor, but it looks like it's a part of the website if you go to tampabay.com.
Do you sell that?
We do sell advertising around it and inside of it, yes.
So to be clear, because I just wanted, what you said was important, the people, when they sell ads, they want them across all the products. The
Many
printed
of them
one,
do, yes.
the e-newspaper, the newsletter, on all, okay. And the website, yeah, do it.
I mean, that's the higher dollar package.
Yeah, if like you were saying that everybody wants it across the board, but you might want it across the board, but you might just want to be on my website.
Yes, 100%.
So then I have a separate price for that.
Yeah, separate packages for each different kind of product.
Somebody this way? Okay, I'm coming over here. You had a question, brother? Oh, you good? Okay. Okay, was there another question? Was that it?
This might be off the topic, but I want you to address, I'm a subscriber of my local daily newspaper. And one thing I like is the notifications. Pushing headlines that takes, in other words, I don't necessarily automatically go there. I listen to these notifications. And when I go to that notification, I'll see their ads and, could you talk about the importance of that? Is that relevant to this discussion here?
Sure.
Of some of the smaller newspapers taking advantage of pushing stuff to the mobile group, and that takes you into the paper when you get those notifications, right? And you see those ads, articles. Is that something relevant to this discussion?
Yes, very relevant to the audience conversation. So push notifications. Specifically, mobile push notifications are a great way to drive audience, especially if you have them set up to go directly to the story. So that really depends on your vendor. But so for example, if you're pushing breaking news and it goes either to the website or to your app, mostly it's your app, that's like a great way to drive audience if you get a number of people that have signed up for them. So the higher amount of people that have signed up for them, the more that drives audience. There's a lot to be done around push notification strategy because you have to sort of figure out what your audience wants you pushing. So you sort of need to look at the analytics on that. And also timing. So there's a lot of thought to a morning push pre-work, a noontime push for the lunch hour, and then an evening push. And sometimes those three things are different kinds of content. So in the evening, we commonly send like our feature-y long reads because that's when people seem to click on them the most. The morning is like something they want to know for the day, right? So what big news is happening today that's planned? What explainer have we written up that would be helpful for them? That kind of thing. And then honestly, the noontime push is commonly like whatever the story is that's trending the highest on our website. Good question.
All right. Any other questions? Going once, going twice. Okay.
My email is at the end of this deck. My clicker thing is not working anymore, but if the deck gets sent around, you're welcome to email me if you come up with something after.
So,
Yes, that's all live links.
Yeah. Where's Jason? Who's in here? From the staff. I'll call.
so Tony asked a good question. And Sonny was asking good questions as far as your events go, so I was following you, I was tracking you. There was one question that I wanted you to ask, I was hoping to ask it, is the whole thing about how did you lead up? I got two questions. This is a two-point question. First of all, obviously, we're an African-American group. I'm assuming your newspaper is not. Is that a correct assumption?
No, I would say that's the correct assumption.
So with that said,
Our community is 11% African American, and but we have a lot larger Hispanic community in the Tampa Bay area.
Okay, so not quite apples to apples, but that's cool. It's good information still.
Yeah.
So the other question is, then when you're doing events and you're talking about your book was a big event that you did you like do articles leading up to that? How did you engage the book reading audience in that large event?
Yes, so I think doing stories leading up to any large event are really important. Doing social media, doing newsletter pushes, reminding people about the event, any and all ways you can sort of market yourselves around an event is very important. And then also if there's any community groups on Facebook or popular Instagram accounts that you have relationships with those folks, that's another way to get information out about your event. And then obviously, some of you might have local media partners that you can also either partner with for events or ask them to push your events from their platforms. Like we have a TV partner that will help us out on that front, as an example. Did you have you said you had a two-part question.
Well, you kind of answered it.
Okay.
Asking about the ethnicity of your readership
Yes.
and how it compared to ours. So.
Yeah, yeah.
Going once, going twice. Oh, here we go. All right, last one.
How you doing? Kenneth Denson from Inglewood today. I had a quick question. Have y'all ever experienced or did any type of software development into progressive web apps for your newsletters?
Okay, say that one more time. Software development for what? Web
Progressive
app?
web apps.
We have not. I'm not that I know of. That might be our
Okay.
technology question. But if you email me that, I'll ask our IT guys if we have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to explain the progressive
Yeah,
web app.
please.
Is basically most apps right now you download it from either Google Play or iOS.
Right.
With a progressive web app, the user only has to go to your website and they can save the website to their device. And once they have the
that's
website on the
great.
device, you can actually send them push notifications.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I didn't know that's what it was called.
Yeah.
I just bookmark web pages to my device, but that's like a little bit of a complicated process, and I don't know
Well, it's
all
an
of our readers know how to do that.
It's
you
an
know?
additional process because now you have access to push notification like an iOS or Android app.
Right.
Regular just bookmarking it, you don't have access
Yeah,
to do that.
that's great. We have done desktop push notifications through Pushly, which was very successful for us for a little while, but we really saw the numbers dive last year, so we ended up getting away from it just because it was like a time suck for our engagement team. But for a little while at least, the desktop push notifications did drive traffic, and that was obviously, you get the pop-up when you go to the web page and it says, do you want push notifications from this website? Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think that's a big part of it is most people are reading the news on their mobile device. No, I think that's all. Thank you guys so much for having me
This
and
has been-
such great questions.
It's been tremendous, hasn't it? Give Carolyn a round of applause.
Thank you all.
A lot of very helpful information, was it not? All right, confirming this deck will be sent out. Claudette will send it out to everyone, right? Yes, that's what I was just told. She's looking at me. But yeah, I know you told me that, but I looked at her and she.
She has it, but okay.
Thank you. Give Carolyn one more round of applause.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
This is
everyone.
great.
This is
This
great.
is very helpful.
Thank you.
Folks, stand by. We're going to introduce our next guest and our next event. Give us 2 minutes. Actually, we're fine. We're still streaming, right? You ready to go? That's ready to go? Okay. One of what has become one of the regular events and traditions here during our NNPA conferences, of course, has been Dr. Chavis's fireside chats. Amen? And so he's going to come forward now before lunch on the topic of harnessing the power of community the Black Press and Inclusive Corporate Leadership. We want to welcome back to the stage our President and CEO, Dr. Chavis himself. And would you like to introduce your partner, or may I introduce? And Dr. Chavis, you heard him mention Diageo earlier. We're going to welcome Diageo today in the person of Vice President Stephanie Childs. Hi, Stephanie, how are you? Glad to see you. All right. I'm sorry, those chairs over there, we have to go around. Okay. Let me, here you both go. Yeah, that request has been made. Yes, yes.
Testing 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, testing. Okay, yes. Great. Thank you, Mark. Good morning again, everyone. And to our live stream audience, we're very pleased to be in the presence of the Black Press of America. Stephanie, we are celebrating 197 years of the Black Press. And over the last 197 years, one of the things that has kept our newspapers alive has been our relationship with corporate America, has been our relationship with the businesses of America. The NNPA is a nonprofit trade association of for-profit businesses. Most of our newspapers are for-profit. There are a few that are also nonprofit. But I just want to give you that background because our relationship with Diageo, we value. And so the first question I want to ask you is tell us something about the company itself, its base, and its outlook on our theme of strengthening the Black press and strengthening communities to the extent to which we have good corporate support.
Thank you so much. And before we get started, I just want to tell you what an honor it is to be here with you, Dr. Chavis. Your accomplishments are amazing. And you know, I think it's clear that I wouldn't be in the position I am in now without the work that you and so many others have done, and acknowledging that I really stand on your shoulders. So thank you. And I also have to say that, you know, I think the need for the Black press is never more than it is. It's never been greater than it is now. And so I really, I'm glad to be partners with you, and I appreciate the partnership from so many of you in this room.
So Stephanie, explain your title. Just let me say this.
Sure.
I don't want to undervalue or underestimate your presence in a global company. Diageo is global.
Yes.
So one of the things we fought for in the civil rights movement was not only to get things desegregated, more equity, more inclusion, more diversity, but we really wanted to make sure that brothers and sisters get up in the place where decisions are made. And so talk to us about your place in the Diageo global
ecosystem. Yeah, and I'm incredibly lucky and privileged, and there's been a lot of people who've helped me along the way, but I'm Executive Vice President of Corporate Relations for Diageo North America. Diageo is headquartered in London, but we have our biggest piece of our business is North America. And so I sit on the executive leadership team for North America. I'm the first Black female to be in that position. My role encompasses, thank you so much. Thank you. It's been a road. I think we're going to talk a little bit about that, but the role encompasses really three functions. I oversee corporate communications, government relations, which is kind of like my wheelhouse. I've been a Washington lobbyist for a long time in my career. And then all of our ESG work, all of our community engagement work, which we'll also talk a little bit more about.
Very good. I know what Diageo produces, but share with the audience some of the products that, I'm sure they will recognize some of the names.
We're the largest premium spirits company in the world. We produce iconic brands including Johnny Walker, Crown Royal, Bailey's Irish Cream, Guinness.
Oh, I see some people nodding their head.
Kettle One Vodka, Ciroc. So yeah.
I hear you.
If you drink alcohol beverages, you probably have had a Diageo product.
Very good. So it's this idea of responsible drinking. When we see television ads, and then we hope we get some print ads, but this theme of responsible drinking. Diageo has taken a real leadership on this, and can you share with our publishers and our audience about you even helped to define the term responsible drinking.
Well, some people are surprised to learn that alcohol beverage industry, it's not in our interest to have people misuse the product. And so it's a core value for us, and a key part of what we do is to educate people about how to use the product responsibly. And so one of the things that I did when I started at Diageo in 2021 was I developed, with the help of Sheila Thorne, who has been instrumental in all of this.
Sheila's here.
Yes.
Let's give her a hand.
Great partner for us. We started the Multicultural Consortium for Responsible Drinking, which we've been working with Dr. Chavis and some of you in the room on. It's really an effort to take the message of moderation directly to the communities. You all know better than I do that messenger matters. And if you're going to speak to folks about your habits and being intentional, and if you're going to go out, have a plan. Think about how you're going to get home. Don't get in your car if you've had drinks. It depends on who's talking to you. You have to have a messenger who people will listen to. You have to speak to people in language that they understand, that resonates. And so the Multicultural Consortium was really built to work with community-based organizations. We've got law enforcement members. We've got members from the press and from publishing to help us spread those messages. And I put this in my hand because it's in your bags. Some of the tools that we've created that can be used, pushed out, are we have a serve and sip book, which my colleague Anna Fitzgibbons over there actually authored. It's an amazing book that really talks about, you have a choice in the beverages that you consume. You can add more alcohol to your drink.
The title of the publication is
It's called Serve and Sip.
Serve and Sip.
So it talks about good hosting habits. It talks about encouraging people to have water, not constantly topping off people's drinks. There's also non-alcoholic beverages, which is an area that's growing as people become more health conscious and want to really be very mindful about their consumption.
So when I worked with Dr. King, I was a chemist. And I'm going to dig a little deeper about alcohol. Some people believe they can just drink a lot of alcohol, then drink a lot of water, and the water dilutes the alcohol. Tell us the truth about that.
Well, that's why we developed another one of our, you'll see on the back of the sip and serve thing, it says drinkiq.com.
It does not dilute.
There's a QR code. And Drink IQ is a survey that helps people understand, and it also helps bust myths about alcohol. Oh, I can just take a cold shower. I can just have a cup of coffee and I'm fine. Or I can just drink a bunch of water. And so it really helps you test, do you have an issue with alcohol? Or does maybe somebody in your family have an issue? And what are the myths that we've created that really aren't true and need to be addressed? So this is one of our key educational tools. It's called drinkiq.com. It's worth taking a look at.
Well, one of the things we do in the Black press, we are myth breakers. We are stereotype busters. And we want to make sure that some of the prevailing misinformation and disinformation in the Black community is that that water does dilute alcohol. It does not. Alcohol is alcohol. And once it's in your system, it'll work its way out of the system, but drinking a lot of water does not take the alcohol out of your system. That's very, very important for our readers and for our publishers, for our community, those who are listening on live stream to know. That's one of the importance, I think, the intersection of what Diageo does and what our Black publishers, what we do, in terms of getting out information. Because unfortunately, I'm be very honest, we live in an age of disinformation. We live in an age of information being put out by robots rather than information being put out by human beings who actually care. So tell us, I don't want to get too technical, but tell us, because I know you in that executive position, tell us what Diageo has planned to try to get some of this more information out, since you are the largest producer and distributor of spirits, not only in America, but in the world.
So for the Multicultural Consortium, we want to expand. We've really just gotten started. This is our second full year of working. And so we want to continue to create customized content to really go hyper-local. We know that within the Black community, there are many communities. Just in the Hispanic community, there are many communities within the community. And so what we'd like to do is really kind of get even deeper so that we can connect with people in the most authentic way possible.
Right, so if I understand you, you're saying that cultural sensitivity in the messaging is important.
He's so much more articulate than I am. Thank you for that save.
No,
Yes.
It's a dialogue. Sister.
Exactly.
We just, look, I am somewhat of an OG, so, I'm going to try to unpack some of this stuff. I know we have some healthcare professionals here. Why is it that France consumes more wine than any nation, but yet France has the lowest heart disease of any nation? What is the correlation between, and if you know, between the consumption of red wine in France and lower heart condition? While we, in the United States, we be drinking, Wild Average, Rich's, 2020, MD, some of those cheaper wines. So can you know what the health
I'm
quotients are?
singularly out of my depth on that question, but I will say that we believe that moderate consumption can be part of a healthy lifestyle.
Okay,
And that's really what our messaging is all about.
Very good. Of the priorities that Diageo has, what is your number one priority?
Well, I think, Diageo, our products live in culture. They're about celebration. They're about the moments where people connect. And so I think, we have to understand the cultures that the people that we're selling to, the consumers that we serve. And so being as inclusive as possible, working with as many communities as possible to convey this information about moderation. And so, for us, we have a whole agenda around our community engagement. Obviously, responsible consumption is number one because of what we sell. But we also, there's been traditional underrepresentation in the spirits industry of people of color. We have 12% of Black Americans are consumers of our products, but only 7% of those of Black people are in the labor force, and only 2% of executives, of which I'm one. So we have some work to do to really make sure that there are equal opportunities to participate in this industry. And so we have a series of programs that we're trying to foster that kind of participation. So we have a program called Learning Skills for Life, which provides hospitality education and training to people coming from underserved communities. Perhaps people, can't afford, haven't had the opportunity to go to college. This is training that we provide free of charge through nonprofit partners. We're operating in 6 cities, including DC, Baltimore, New Orleans, Houston. And so we've, in the last year, we've had over 2,000 graduates, and we have about an 88% job placement rate. So that's the goal, is to get people involved in our industry from the entry level up to my level. And so there's a number of other things that we're doing as well, but that's one example.
Well, that's a good segue to the next question. Recently, the Supreme Court of the United States took action to dismantle affirmative action. And correspondingly, there are a lot of corporate leaders who are backing away from diversity, equity, and inclusion. So you're speaking now to the black press of America. What should be our posture from what you've learned in Diageo about not just the value of diversity, equity, and inclusion, but I would proffer to say that businesses, it's more profitable to have diversity, equity, and inclusion than not to have it. Can you just explain what has been your experience at Diageo that having the diversity that you have, I know you're going to increase it, but has it helped your bottom line? That's what we want to know.
Well, at the end of the day, you know, we're a consumer products company. And so we have to answer to our consumers, and we have to follow the trends for where those consumers are going to be. So for us, we have to be able to speak to all communities. And we also have to have an employee population that reflects those communities in order to be able to authentically represent. So this isn't new for us. We've always operated this way. And I don't think it's about excluding one group or elevating another group. It's about working with all of our consumers.
What would you say to one of the good things about the black press that I've noticed today in 2024? There's an increasing readership and viewership from Generation Z and millennials. What is Diageo's position on how to educate a generation? Is there, let me answer this, is there age that you target for responsible drinking, or do we wait later on in life?
You know, we talk to people of legal drinking age.
Which is?
21 and above.
21, okay. Because, you know, some states it's different. So 21 and up, when you reach that audience of 21-year-olds, because the truth of the matter is, you know, in the black community, we do things early. We don't wait till something is legal. I'm just being honest. Y'all know I'm telling the truth. So I want to make sure that we give out the information that will help. If a young person, they may have somebody in their family that may be over-consuming. Where do people go to get some of this information that you're sharing? Is there a particular website or some information base where people can get information?
I think we've got, you know, I like the Drink IQ just because it's a survey that helps you become more self-aware for people of legal drinking age. I have to say that. But the other thing that I would mention is there's an industry organization called responsibility.org. It's an organization that Diageo belongs to, as well as our peer companies, that does provide information about safe use of alcohol and other links to other resources that help educate people. So,
on an economic business question, how much do you think, well, I don't want to give you a financial report, but overall, how much is generated by Diageo in the sphere of commerce?
you know, I don't know the answer to that question, unfortunately.
Okay, well, that's fine. Well, we'll do some research. Because here's the thing, we're going to be doing some publication of articles based on your presentation. And I know that some of our readers would want to know that. We can get it. You don't have to get that from me. But what I would like to do is ask you, from your vantage point, given your position in Diageo, what would be one of the most important messages that you want to give to the black press, that the black press would give to the black community?
I think that, first of all, we have a responsibility to educate people about responsible use of the product. To the extent that we can reach people and get those messages out, I think that's number one for us as a company. The other thing that I'd like to leave you with is that, you know, we are committed to engaging with the Black community. We have a number of programs, including our Learning Skills for Life program. We've given $12 million to HBCUs and minority-serving institutions to create...
12 million? 12 million?
Yes, 12 million, to create permanent endowments in 29 schools. which have generated about $400,000 in scholarships to help kids with tuition costs, book costs, et cetera, et cetera. And then our next step on that is to really help get people into the pipeline for careers in hospitality. And then, finally, another thing that I wanted to share with you all, this kind of a transformative effort. We are an anchor investor in a company called Pronghorn, which is a 10-year effort to build more founders and executives and leaders in the distilled spirits industry. We have invested in 19 wholly black-owned brands, spirits brands, and we're going to continue to and we're going to continue to grow that so that if you want a fully black-owned bar, with all products that are owned by black owners, that's our goal. I think when we looked at our supply chain and we wanted to, do more business with suppliers, we found that there weren't a lot of people who could scale to the level that a Diageo would require. And so to my CEO's credit, she was like, well, if folks aren't out there, we're just going to have to build it. And so we created Pronghorn as an effort to really start building and supporting black entrepreneurs who wanted to build a brand. And we do that by providing technical advice. We help with marketing. It's everything soup to nuts. We have mentorships where people come in and shadow us, look at our processes. And so it's a great program. It's pronghorn.co if you want to get more information about them.
Could you spell it
Pronghorn,
for-
PRONGHORN.co. And the pronghorn, it's just symbolic. It's a mammal. It's a land-based mammal. And it's symbolic of the fact that we're in a marathon, not a sprint. It's going to take time for us to get there because we've been historically underrepresented in this industry, but we want to do the work to get there.
Well, thank you. I think that's good information. Our community, we are consumers, and we're trying to get into production, to be producers, to be owners, to be the distributors. There's always a back end to the front end of production of products. Do you also think that Diageo will be putting information out so people can get into the whole line of the chain of production from a business perspective?
That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create opportunities for people to get involved at every level of our industry. We have an MBA program also that brings in black students and black entrepreneurs. So we're really trying to take a multi-pronged approach to bringing people into our industry, which traditionally has been it's been pretty closed. We operate in a 3-tiered system where we have the suppliers, which is the Diageo, the distributors, and the retailers. Because after Prohibition, the industry was broken up specifically to create safeguards so that to protect from abuse of the industry because of the unique nature of the product. And so I think there's a great opportunity now to really open this thing up and get more people involved. It's a great industry. Again, it's about celebration, it's about tradition, it's about people connecting. It's a very lucrative industry, and so it's something that is really core to what we're doing at Diageo.
So we're having a fireside chat, but I'm going to ask my publishers. Raise your hand if you're getting any advertising from the distilled industry. Anybody? No advertising? What about, okay, you got one. Raise your hand, that's good. So we got some work to do. I think, first of all, thank you for having the courage to have this fireside chat. And one of the things that I admire about you, Stephanie, is that you call it the way it is. And I think you certainly are now an asset to Diageo. Before we end the fireside chat, could you just share with our publishers, from your informed perspective as an executive now at Diageo, the future? In the United States right now, post-COVID, a lot of our businesses lost ground. Now we're trying to build back. So from a corporate perspective, how do you see the business community being more receptive to African American, Latinos, other business of color, actually getting more into the production of the economy and not solely exclusively on the consumer side?
Well, I think, you know, any business executive that looks at the demographic shifts that are occurring understands that the growth in the population is going to come from Black and brown communities. And I think that more than anything is going to drive a shift in understanding that these the relationships with Black and brown communities have to be deepened. And you have to have a workforce that reflects the communities. So you're going to have more representation. These guys are driven by, you know, business imperatives, business realities. And I think the fact that if you look at where the population growth is going, it's going to have to be a bigger piece of your business plan, a bigger consideration. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to ignore or neglect, you know, your mainstream consumers that you've always been talking to. It means that you just have to open the aperture and have a wider ability to communicate and appeal to a broader number of consumers coming from more diverse backgrounds.
If our member publishers want to get more information about responsible drinking or about what Diageo's current products are, where do we go?
You can talk with Sheila and I about the Multicultural Consortium for Responsible Drinking.
Sheila, raise your hand. Sheila Thorne, famous consultant.
Yeah. Our Diageo North America website, we're just about to launch it. I'm looking at Lorenzo, who runs corporate communications for me. And that's going to be chock full of information about all of these programs and how people can get involved.
Let's give Stephanie Childs from Diageo, an executive. I think, how we doing for time, Mark? Lunch is what time? Okay. Right. Just so lunch is on the second floor. So we'll take a break, and this has been live streamed and recorded. You want some questions? Yes. Since we have, let's take a few questions from the audience. Is that okay? Sure.
I'll be happy to answer if I can.
You can use my mic. If you have a question, raise your hand.
I'm good.
Identify yourself again for the live stream.
Sonny Masai Giles, publisher and CEO of the Houston Defender. Question, you mentioned the you said P-R-O-N-G?
H-O-R-N, pronghorn.
Okay, I just Googled it, I couldn't get through to it. But you mentioned 19 entrepreneurs. Where do we find that list of entrepreneurs? Because it sounds like it's a perfect opportunity to spotlight people in our community who are doing things. Where do we find that list?
It's www.pronghorn.co.
Oh, C-O, that's the problem. Okay, all right, thank you. But
and
I'm
all
interested
those, all
in
those
getting
brands
that list.
are accessible through that website.
And the 19 entrepreneurs that you've been
The founders,
supporting?
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Now that Dr. Chavis has dispelled the water myth, I want to ask about French fries. No, that was really a joke. Serious, but a joke. Two things. One, what are the times of year, because I think Sheila and I talked about this before, but when African Americans tend to consume the most alcohol? And will we really be able to reach out to you all to get information as we produce stories around those times of year to talk about responsible consumption of alcohol. And then my second question is, I think one of the most learned spirits purveyors that I know is a third generation spirit store owner in Washington, D.C., Chat's Liquors, who is a walking history book or knowledge of everything about alcohol. And he has a wonderful African American section or black section of alcohol that's been produced by. And every Saturday he brings some black spirit owner into the store. I'm not there every Saturday, maybe every other Saturday, but yes, let me clarify that. But I would like to be able to take this information back to him and see how he could even be a spokesperson or be a part of this program. I don't know how deep this really goes into communities, and I think all of us would like to really grab a hold of this, but we just don't really know how. So
Okay.
the
No, I'll
times
take-
of year and where do we get connected?
So in terms of the times of the year, we just finished, what we've done for 2 years running now, and I think we're going to continue to do it, is, we just did a series of radio ads in targeted markets talking about responsible hosting and responsible consumption. And those were really well received. We can share kind of one of the ads or so if that's helpful to you all to hear what that messaging was like. And so I think you asked me about expansion. I think that's also something we can look at is what are the spike times? I mean, we know it's the holidays, but there are other spike times. And those times also correspond with specific things that happen in a particular community. They're not the same for everybody. So just understanding better about that and being able to really target messages is one of the ways that I think we're going to be a lot more effective. So, we want to work with you guys to really identify those. And so on your second question, I'd love to connect with him. I live in DC. I'm from DC. I'd love to meet this person. Okay, and because my group at Diageo is split between our New York headquarters and my DC office, and so Anna, who it kind of helps run the MCRD, sits with me in Washington, and we'd love to go meet him and pay him a visit and talk about the things that we're doing. Our politicians don't drink. What are you talking about?
I think over here we have a question. Yes.
Doris Ellis, the Houston Sun newspaper. You said that you gave $12 million to 29 HBCUs. I happen to work at one of those. I work at an HBCU, and I'm trying to find the list. She's looked on your website and has not been able to locate it. So are any of those schools in Texas?
We don't have any Texas schools, unfortunately.
We
I
need
want
to
to
work
change
on that. Can we have a
Yeah.
conversation? Yeah, okay. Thank you.
But that information will also be up on our Diageo North America website. So
Thank you. So you have a wealth of information there, but how are you getting it out? How have you been getting it out already?
well, that's why we created the Multicultural Consortium for Responsible Drinking. Dr. Chavis.
So you have to drive people to that website, is that right?
Well, we work with other organizations to help push the information out. Sheila helps push it out as well. And we're going to do more. I mean, just developing more content to push out specifically.
So is developing the content an issue? Or because you have to be gentle, you don't want to stop people from buying your product, but you want to tell them to drink responsibly. So that's kind of a mixed message there.
I think, we want people to drink better, not more, and drink in a way that's consistent with a healthy lifestyle. And that's really the message. It actually doesn't, it's not, it's actually counterproductive for people to abuse the product.
So you're not selling the product in your messaging?
It's a message about moderate consumption. Yeah.
Well, I would want to be your, if you needed a trailblazer to check out how you want to do this,
Savannah.
call me. I mean, you know, just the Savannah Tribune is a good way. I mean, we're a Southern newspaper. We're in Georgia.
My father was born in Savannah. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So we got a connection already.
But I think, you know, as we build up the Multicultural Consortium for Responsible Drinking, building up website resources, that's kind of where we are.
Because you can't hit every city as you would like to, but you could with us. If, you know, I'm just
And that's
trying
why
to-
this partnership is really so valuable for us, and I'm
Yes.
so thankful that Dr. Shivas gave me the opportunity to meet you all today.
I'm happy too, because I was totally unaware. Thank you.
Thank you. And just point of information, the National Convention will be in Baltimore this year. The National Convention next year will be in Savannah, Georgia. 150 years. All right.
Jean-Marc Marine from Reset Digital. You're one of our clients, so it's great. I wanted to dovetail a little bit on Dr. Chavis' comment about, and I wanted you to speak to specifically about advertising revenue and dollars. P&G has made commitments and said that they want to reflect the population in terms of their spend. What is the plan for Diageo in terms of that, in terms of the advertising spend with the communities out there?
We have specific kind of goals around our spend, but essentially, you know, we wanted to reflect the size of the consumer base that it is.
Right, and look, the reason why we're having this, we're building a relationship, a partnership. And quite frankly, most of corporate America does not do business with us, does not interface with us. And so when a company like Diageo comes forward, we're going to build this relationship. First, for the interest of our community, and secondly, for the interest of our businesses. Because there's this symbiotic, one of the reasons why we have a lot of problems in Black America is because we don't have enough businesses in Black America that helps inform and keeps engaged our people. I'm all in favor of, let me put it this way. We believe that the Black press is the best instrument for people to get reality checks, for people to get information. And so the extent to which we, Stephanie, can continue to build and strengthen the relationship between the NNPA and Diageo, I think all the publishers would agree that's something we would like to see happen. Let's give her another hand.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Oh, one
We
more.
appreciate you.
Okay, now
I
this
just-
publisher is a wine person. When we were in Puerto Rico, we never had a wine tasting at one of our events. She and her husband put it together. So tell us where you're from, Jamie.
From Chicago. Our business is in Joliet, Illinois. And the reason I say that because we're in Will County, and we have the largest inland port in this part of the world. And Diageo has a huge warehouse that I believe they are even expanding in Plainfield, one of the communities.
That's
we
a
cover.
major hub for us.
Yes. And I was wondering, because we do wine of the week. We've been doing that for about 10, 15 years. But we always pair it with food. So, and I've been struggling with that because I keep telling people, I'm not trying to make alcoholics. You know, you got to have food when you drink, particularly with wine. So we do put at the bottom, always remember to drink responsibly. Because I don't want, and I know younger people are starting to drink more and more wine. I've seen that. And I know you haven't mentioned wine, you're mentioning spirits, but I think you mean wine as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, we sold our wine business a while ago, but as a collective industry, we all are behind this agenda: wine, beer, and spirits. Diageo is a distilled spirits company. We sell spirits. And we also have Guinness beer. But as an industry, we are lockstep on this agenda.
Very good. I think one final from Sheila Thorne.
Yes, I think Stephanie.
Tell us who you are, Sheila.
Sheila Thorne, President and CEO of the Multicultural Healthcare Marketing Group, and members of my team here. And we've been partners with Diageo on this effort from day one. But I think Stephanie has been very modest because this is a personal commitment she has made as an executive and is leading the charge and is in all of our meetings, even with her busy schedule. So I am pleased, having worked with corporate America, you rarely see someone at her level on this kind of program that gets into the community on the ground. So I want to give Stephanie a round of applause for that.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
Sheila.
And secondly, just to show the commitment to the ethnic press, we invited here one of our other partners, the National Association of Hispanic Publications, Dr. Alvaro Gurdian, who is a friend of NNPA. So we do Black, Latino, and Native American, where there are a lot of myths about over-drinking and binge drinking. We've been on reservations, we've done powwows, we've done radio. We really want to get on the ground and talk to people to help them be more responsible. So it's a pleasure for me as a woman of color to work with Diageo and Lorenzo Lopez on the other side, Lorenzo, and Anna Fitzgibbons, who is our day-to-day contact. And so Dr. Chavis, when I mentioned this to him, he jumped on it immediately, that the NNPA needs to be there. And he is also at our meetings twice a year. We meet every 2 weeks. We're constantly looking for the right trusted messengers.
Right.
Thank you, Sheila. You said it better than I could have.
Brother, I saw your hand and we missed you. Tell us who you are and where you're from. Right quick.
Yes, sir, you're at the Florida Sun. I'm just wondering, is your industry a growth industry? And are you a public traded company?
Yes, we're a publicly traded company. I think our industry is growing. I mean, and it's different segments, right? Like if you look at the non-alcoholic beverage industry products, a lot of the alcohol beverage companies like my own are investing heavily in that. Consumers want choice, right? And so we're providing more and more choices. We're becoming more and more innovative. If you go to the store, you'll see more and more choices in terms of kinds of beverages, amount of alcohol in the beverages. And so, yes, it is an industry that's growing, and I think following consumer tastes for greater choices. And that's what we'll continue to do.
Thank you very much. Well, Diageo is certainly served better having a sister like you there. God bless you and continue the good work. Thank you. Let's give her a hand.
Stephanie Childs, Vice President Diageo. Give her one more round of applause. Folks, it is, what time is it? So we ran on 8 minutes. Lunch starts in 8 minutes upstairs. So you have time to go up to the second floor, get settled, grab your lunch.